Hey Frank, how we doing today, man?
Good. How are we doing?
I'm doing great over here. How you doing over here? All right, so me and Adam were just talking. My main man over here, Adam McKinley, and we're joined, by the way, with Frank Dux. You're originally from Toronto, Canada. We were just talking about music, me and Adam. Are you a Rush fan?
As in Rush Limbaugh?
The band?
Oh, no, no.
No, wow, that's a little crazy, right? Like,
No.
coming from Canada, because they're obviously from Canada. What kind of music do you like, man?
I like all kinds, to be quite honest. I like CCR, Jackson Brown. I'm old school.
I
I like
like it, brother.
Sinatra. I like Rachmaninoff. I can go on.
Big Frank Sinatra fan. So now you're in Vegas. Speaking of
Yeah,
Sinatra, like, I mean, come on, you got to think about Frank Sinatra when you talk about Vegas. How's Vegas treating you, man?
great. I love it here. I really love it. People are great. It's got all the attributes of a big city, but it's got a small town feel. I live in a great neighborhood. I know my neighbors. Okay, I lived in Los Angeles, even New York, where people are piled on top of each other. I didn't know anybody. you know,
Yeah.
Here it's like can't help but go outside, know whose kids are whose, and if there's a problem, everybody's eager to come over and help, and vice versa.
Isn't that
So
beautiful?
yeah, it's wonderful. I really enjoy it here. It's it's quality of life versus quantity of having things sometimes.
Sure.
100%. And Adam, who's with us, is my brother from a different mother, great martial artist. Can you tell me how you got to meet Adam?
We met primarily through Facebook. He was
Yeah.
doing some rather spectacular kicks, and he reached out to me, and we just started conversing. I thought he did really well.
I
He's an
trained with him.
unsung talent there. He had
Thank you.
some real and especially, I mean, Adam's not a young guy. He's 40 years old, and
Yeah.
he was doing better than most of the young kids I was looking at for many years. I'm going, hey, he's got it. He's disciplined.
Thank you,
So
sir.
I was it was mutual respect. You know,
Adam is no joke. I trained with him, had the honor to do so. Met him through the Sean Cannon, great actor, also a martial artist. And I trained with Adam. And first of all, he's got, one of the most inviting and beautiful families you could ever see on this planet Earth. They are so wonderful. And Adam is such a great trainer. And I can't wait to see the two of you guys collaborate. But let's talk about your martial arts career. First of all, you're tied
sure.
into some of the most amazing martial arts films of all time. Bloodsport, okay,
Yeah,
Lionheart, Only the Strong, Banana Way, Banana Way. I don't know if I'm singing it right, and I can't sing to
yeah.
save my life, worth a shit. But I tell you what, man, let's unpack a couple things. Where did you begin with your martial arts journey before we get to these amazing films that you were a part of?
Well, first of all, I was a kid who grew up rather impoverished. I ended up taking martial arts because I didn't have shoes to play intramural sports, and I was probably the top athlete in my school. And also, I probably could have played intramural, but I was too proud, and my family was too proud to ask for help. You know, and what would happen is I'd walk home from school, and you could go. If I went to the left a couple blocks, there was all these martial arts schools all there. There was like John Leone with Kaja Kempo. There was Bill Riyasaki. He had his Rio Dojo, and you'd see Bruce Lee in there. Before Bruce Lee was Bruce Lee, Benny Akitas would be in there, or his brothers. And then there was a Kung Fu Sansu school on the corner opposite the street as well. So, it was just a very interesting time as a young man. And I would travel from school to school in audit because I didn't have the money for lessons. With Bill Riyasaki, I would clean the sidewalk in his windows, and he'd open the blinds, and he'd kind of gesture. I would learn kind of that way. And it was really advantageous because I started to train my ability to see something, dissect it, and really make it work for me or defeat it. So I could literally look at a guy's movements and say, okay, I know how I'm going to get on this guy. And a lot of times it's not the style, it's just the individual. It has to do with how they're exercising their body biomechanics. That's how good it was for me as an experience, a learning experience, because I was able to do that. It really comes down to, dissecting the body biomechanics of anything we do. And that's the key to whether you create vulnerability in your opponent, which you can exploit, or you end up being vulnerable yourself.
100%, man. You're talking my language. Styles makes fights, 100%. And, you definitely saw something in Adam, as I did, these kicks that I see all the time. And, I think that's a great tale that you just told right there. And I know that you have your own brand of martial arts right now, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, I always had my own brand. You see, people confuse ninjutsu with being a style. And ninjutsu is really, it never was a style. And you got to be very careful, because there's a term, ninjutsu was really a term phrased at the turn of the 20th century by a guy named Ito Genjutsu, who was basically advertising a role-playing experience called the ninja experience. Okay. And what it was a collection of like all these mythical folk tales in Japanese history, and combining with what would be the Rappa, Supa, the Kampai Tai of their era. These different fringe groups that would carry out special forces kind of operations, including spying. Okay. And it really depends on what century we're talking about too. There's a 16th century ninja, if you want to use that term, ninja or shinobi, is quite different than a 17th century. And so you really have to understand the history and what's going on. And I really took an interest to it. I was very blessed to be taught by the real thing, as opposed to a bunch of these hucksters that are out there claiming that they know ninjutsu and they're teaching it. And the first way they're a huckster is when they start telling you it's a martial art, or that it's koru, that there's some tradition. No, if you really read the old manuals, they're add-on curriculums to the actual samurai arts. Okay, now, it's more about tradecraft, and if you get in the higher levels, it's more about occultism. It's more about today it's more about using it as a way to proselytize Shigendo Buddhism, and basically, pull people in and make them converts to this, mystical side of Buddhism, if you will.
Well, I'm a Buddhist. We can unpack that in a little bit. Your original sensei master that you studied under, Senzo Tanaka, the Tiger.
Yes.
What was that experience like? Because I mean, you learned some great things there. I definitely have to show up with your hybrid of martial arts.
Let me put it this way: Tanaka was a no fool around guy. He was a full blown, real life yakuza, if you want to call it yakuza. Although he wasn't yakuza, because he didn't have the tats. Okay, yeah. He was a level above that. He was a real black dragon. Okay, the real deal. Not this, runaround crowd, and not the offshoots from which became the Black Dragon Fighting Society under John Keane. John learned from Tanaka, and then he ended up forming the Black Dragon Fighting Society out of Chicago, sort of like based on that. And there's a tremendous history there, and if you know it correctly, I mean, it all dovetails and makes sense. I mean, the real Tanaka, and me and him split ways because, bottom line is I didn't want to go down that path in life. I was one of those guys in the very beginnings of martial arts, when it had this mystical quality of really raising your ethics and standards. And I think that's what were really Adam and me connected, is because we both believe in that. And if you look at martial arts today, it's out the window. I mean, you would never see someone of a rank, for example, higher than 4th or 5th degree. I mean, you rarely would ever see anything above that. Now everybody's running around as a 10th degree black belt. Really? What makes you a 10th degree, honestly?
Right.
When Jigoro Kono himself was only a 5th degree.
Right.
Explain that to me. The founder of judo was only a 5th degree black belt. you know. Shotokan karate, same thing with Funakoshi. He never really got past fifth. I think he got to fourth. He trained under Moby. And Moby actually went to Japan, confronted him. Nobody talks about this, and put him on the mat, put him down on the mat twice, because he had a real distaste in his mouth about how karate was being portrayed by Funakoshi. Okay? Nobody talks about it. But Funakoshi took the art and he reworked it. And that's why you have Shotokan. You know, it became his own system. And what was great about Funakoshi, and this is his contribution, is he made it more about character. He made it more about development. And that's where you get the Miyagi characters in Karate Kid. There was a real Miyagi, okay? The real Miyagi was a teacher to a gentleman by the name of Yamaguchi, the cat, who is the founder of Goju. And you'll find most of your hardstyle Kumite fighters all came out of that.
Wow.
Okay.
I think that's a great history lesson. We just got there right there, brother.
Yeah.
You know, like 100%. A lot of people are going to enjoy that. And, you know, my thing is that I know that, again, you do a hybrid. Do you have a favorite style, or is it like, do you have
I did?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I did that's different. Because my mind wasn't polluted with all these different ways, although I have many great masters and I really find value in the traditions and what they teach, but I know them for what they're worth, what the real attributes of them are. Okay. One of the things that is the philosophical attributes of martial arts. And that's where the Buddhism does come in. And if it's done properly, there's no proselytizing. People will go to it based on what they're seeing and hearing on its own. Okay. There's no like, oh, you do this magic finger weave and you're going to have superpowers. Okay. All right. I mean, people actually believe that. I will tell you that right now. There are people who actually believe that. There are people who don't understand that all the weaving, all of that was a form of a ninja or someone who's being cooped up for hours and upon hours behind enemy lines where they could be caught at any moment and killed, where they don't panic. And it was a way of them focusing their energies and just staying centered. That's what it was about. Now, if you look at ancient man, of course, in those ancient times, they did believe in the occult. They did believe that you could do these incantations and you'd be invisible. You know, and what really made them invisible is the fact that they weren't nervous, because when you give off that energy, people will look at you. A good example is you're driving down the freeway and all of a sudden you just get the sensation in the back of your head and you turn and there's somebody looking at you from the car over, you know, which you would have never, ever seen otherwise. Or you get a sensation in your head, you know, of just, hey, this doesn't feel right. Okay, and there's an electrical intention. We actually can give that off. And sometimes we give it off to the point where we think about someone so strong, all of a sudden they will call us. We get a call at that moment from that person. And you may have not heard from them for 5 years. Why did that happen? Well, that's because of when you start to understand the molecular structure of the universe, and we go very deep into the deeper parts of the martial arts, you understand we're all interconnected, that we're all really a projection of energy. That's all we are. And nothing's really solid. It's just appears solid because everything's close together. And now atomic science is proving that.
I love it, because I love it. You know, I'm a Buddhist. I meditate almost every day. You know, I'm a practitioner of it. Also martial arts, boxing, all those kind of disciplines. And going back to something you were saying there about like this kind of like style, like, so basically people out there listening, show enough from The Last Dragon from the 80s does not exist. You cannot shoot fireballs out of your hands.
Right.
Like, that's where it ends, right? That's where we hit the ceiling.
Well, you can with magical tricks and aids, you know. It's called digital enhancement.
Sure.
Yeah, it looked terrible.
We can do
but that
digital.
movie stands up. That movie stands up. And speaking of movies, okay, let's face facts, buddy. Frank, you were the pioneer of great martial arts fight choreography. Now, granted, there was some great films prior to you showing up and doing your thing, but like, where did this beautiful passion that you have for film come into play? Because, I mean, let's start with talking about Bloodsport. I mean, that's, if you're a martial artist and you're a martial arts film fan, that's like your go-to. That's your top 5 easily.
Yeah.
Well, I would say,
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
I would say, honestly, it didn't matter what you were in the 80s. If you were growing up and you watched that movie, you were hooked.
Yeah. Bloodsport was a game changer. And what people understand is Bloodsport also saved the martial art industry. They had a whole bunch of string of what they call chop sockies, and they were just floundering. Those films were floundering. And no producer wanted to touch martial arts. And you saw it in the schools. The enrollments were going away. Nobody was taking it serious because, you had Shokasugi jumping off a 5-story building, landing on a rooftop without even rolling. And he's right into a sword fight scene that could never happen that way. It got silly. This is the only thing I could say. And what I did with Bloodsport is I brought back the realism. And I brought back, because I had the fight experience, I had the ability to see what was missing, and I made people aware of it. And one of the things is I didn't have this quick cutaway shots. Everything in my choreography is a long shot if you look at it very closely, and we move the camera with it, and it moves just like if you're in a fight. That's why you have Ted Tabora, who's a great Kumite fighter himself, who turned around and said, what can I say? It's real. Bloodsport's real. That's why the real fighters would go back and forth. Showtime did a special when they were promoting Bloodsport on Showtime for the first time. And they took actual fight footage of Kumite and they played it against my choreography. And you can see they were pretty much one and the same. The only difference is, if a guy's throwing a crescent kick, it's not, nice and fluid and the leg is totally extended like you see in a movie. Okay, sure. But it's there, knocking the guy out.
Right.
And so I brought that realism to it. I also had the benefit of the fact that the same guy who taught Bruce Lee filmmaking was a guy named Huey Kearns. Huey Kearns is in the Stuntmen's Hall of Fame. I studied film. I got a degree in film. And I ended up, learning all these tricks with Huey about how to work the camera in different ways. Most people are used to playing with the film speed to make somebody look faster. And what I figured out is you don't have to do it with the film speed. We can do it with the shutter speed. So you don't get that choppy motion. So there's a lot of things I was able to do. I also was able to dissect the movements of Jean-Claude. And really, choreography is like writing music. It really is. You have beats, you have crescendo, you have everything going on. And there's a million songwriters out there, but how many people can honestly say that they write consistently hit after hit? That's my advantage. That's what I did. And unfortunately, because of that, it evoked so much jealousy of the people around me and people who wanted to also keep me close to them for their own success, which was Jean-Claude, Sheldon Lettich. And they basically made it very clear to try to keep me pinned down, taking credit for my credits. And I can go on and on that story. But that's what it's really all about.
It's great that, we're going to segue into something I was going to ask you next. And you actually started, toying with it, is that the fight choreography versus real fighting. That's tough to do. I've done a couple of things in film with stunts. And I know actually had a box, and, I'm kind of an okay martial artist, but it's like everything is different. And to sell that and to train someone, whether they be an athlete or an extra in a bar fight or whatever, like, what's the difference you think that is the game changer when you're doing fight choreography with someone that's actual fighter, and like how to get them to like understand, like you said, things kind of slow down a little bit. They look great on screen, but everything's kind of slowed a little bit. Like, what's your advice to anyone that's listening that's trying to do that sort of thing?
Well, like I said, a lot of it has to do with looking at the action and knowing how to pace it and doing the pacing. Most people don't know how to do it. That's why I look at some great actors, Scott Adkins. I think he's a wonderful performer. Poor guy, though, doesn't have a good choreographer. I'll be honest with you. I don't think he does, because he's not featured properly, if that makes sense. It's like they shoot the whole wad too soon, They're like, if it was sex, I'd say he's got a premature ejaculator on his hands. You want to, Okay, you want to have some foreplay there with the
He shot his load,
Sure.
people.
You know, you
Sure.
want to really build. You know, that's how you do the scenes. I laugh at this guy. I'm going to say it. I never really like to talk bad about people. In fact, I won't even give the guy's name. There's a guy out there. He's going out trash talking me. I won't even dignify by even giving his name. But the point is, he was even saying how I bragged that I did the choreography on the Quest, and anybody who saw my and then I lied about that. And anybody who saw my lawsuit against Van Damme regarding that project knows that I sued over the fact that I wasn't the choreographer. That was in my contract. It was a breach of contract. But I laid out a lot of the choreography ahead of time with Jean-Claude and my ideas. We were writing the script, and that doesn't come across. But if you really want to do a comparison, that so-called choreographer challenged me to a choreography match, and I say, dude, it's already happened. You took my project, The Quest, which is really a ripoff of Bloodsport, only preset, a couple, 100 years earlier, and then you take what I'm doing, and it's there in Bloodsport. What do you want? You had your shot. Bloodsport prevailed, and you even had some of my work to work with, so it kind of says it all right there. And that's why I think people like that talk like that, because they got to raise themselves up. They see me as a competitive threat in the film industry. And I've really been kind of pigeonholed pretty much martial arts wise and everything by all these kinds of people who control the narrative. Well, there's a guy out there named Viking Samurai or something. He's inviting everybody on the show who could badmouth me, but he's never once spoken to me, which shows you his level of ethic. He'd go out there, ruin my hard-earned reputation to grab some views for himself. He thinks that's going to really raise his station in life. Right now, I so many people are just looking at the guy going, for what he really is. There's no ethics. That's the most unethical thing you can do. If I have a problem with somebody,
One thing I wanted to say about you, Frank, is the one thing that strikes me about you is you really envision the true path of martial arts. For example, we're talking about people that have bad things to say about you. I love how you're just quiet and you let them speak and you let them talk. And it goes to show just how much more advanced you are in that level of the martial arts. And I have to tip my hat to that, man. The fact that you're able to just, wipe it under the rug, and that you don't have to come back and you don't have to tear people down. In fact, it's not who you are. And again, I just want to say this for the audience. That strikes me as something very amazing that doesn't exist in the martial arts anymore. Period.
Well, a true martial artist would never behave that way. And so I let them behave that way, because anybody who really, really understands the arts, who really appreciates the arts, and is really feel connected to it, recognizes that right away. And they typically, here's the thing, they're very quiet about it as well because of that. So you don't hear a backlash generally of what's going against these guys. And I feel sad for them, because they really don't see the consequences of their actions. They don't get the feedback to stop them early on. So they continue and they continue, and they get this diarrhea of the mouth. And before you know it, everybody's looking at them going, I really don't want to be around this guy, or what is the redeeming values that this guy has really got, really?
Sure. And that's what I've personally seen, this type of trash talk involving you. And the thing that I think is the funniest is that there are people that are coming on the post, and they're actually saying to this person that made the post, hey, you don't look like this isn't a good look for you. Like as a martial artist, this is not a good look for you. This does not make you any better in anybody's eyes. And it's just kind of funny, man. We were talking the other day about tradition and what it means to, fall back on traditional martial arts and really take in that's something that just doesn't seem to be there anymore. That something in that self that just doesn't exist. And I gravitate towards that. It's something, again, that I stress to people. There's something to be said about somebody that's, again, able to sit there and deal with trash talk and say nothing, remain completely quiet, remain completely focused on the things that matter and not the things that don't matter. This is epic to me. So,
well, I was saying, and I think I've shared this with you. and I'd like to share it with the audience. And that is, and it comes from the head of the Black Dragons. He was the first one who told me this, and he was complimenting me the same way. And that is, an empty wagon makes the most noise. Okay, old traditional saying. And another saying that I got from someone I know across the planet. I mean, and they have a saying because they live in Africa, and that is, everyone knows who the lion is. The lion doesn't have to advertise the lion on the plains. Okay, and that's kind of where I'm at too. I mean, I kind of laugh at people who buy into it. I have to. I go, how stupid can you be? You have to absolutely, to buy into their arguments, you actually have to suspend all critical thinking. You really do. I mean, the Sheldon Lettich, for example, he says, "Oh, I'm a fake, I'm a fraud, blah blah blah." Well, maybe you didn't perform your due diligence, Sheldon, but I can guarantee you the studio did. Okay, just ask the attorneys involved. My attorney, all right. He, and it doesn't stop there. I had to do, my due diligence had to be done with Canon Films. It had to be done with HarperCollins when I did my book, Secret Man. The U.S. Navy did its due diligence on me before I ended up contributing my information that goes into the U.S. Navy SEAL Spec War Manual. My name's on the inside of that manual. It didn't get there by popularity contest or because of a movie. All right. My name's inside of major studies in Mexico based on my Kumite fights by Dr. Nuevas. She's even online talking about it, how she interviewed hundreds of Kumite fighters because they were trying to figure out what was the attraction between guys who would do these fight violence like this, and some would become police and live with high ethics, and others would gravitate to becoming criminal enforcers. And people don't understand these Kumite fights. They've been going on for centuries. You know why? Because this is how crime families find and recruit real wise guys, real tough guys. Okay, and there's a difference. Tough guys.
A lot of people.
A tough guy is a guy who's got at least 300 fights under his belt. I'm telling you, you ain't a tough guy till you got that, and I mean 300 fights, not little push me here, push me there kind of encounters.
A lot of people have to understand that, like fighters, like we're good people by nature, but more when, it's time to, pump it up and get in there and fight and light the fire gets lit and you go. And then afterwards you could take someone out to dinner, embrace them. Not all the
true
time.
Martial arts is that way.
That's
unfortunately,
exactly,
you have a lot
that's
of
why
thugs.
it's a discipline. Yep.
The difference, this is the difference in the MMA culture. I call it right now. I love what Dana White did. I really commend the guy for what he did and what he's trying to do. But I call it the mixed up martial arts. Okay? Because it's losing and has a lack of spirituality. And that's why it's losing its audience. That's why these guys lose their audience. That's why these guys are really not making the money they should be making. Bottom line. Because they burn themselves out. They make themselves undesirable to people. There's a few people like Randy Couture, who was a very smart, I guess, businessman as well as educated individual. He's done very well for himself. But, the majority, they just don't think past the next day. They're focused on what's going to happen, and it's all about validation. And that's why you see a lot of this crud going on in the internet about myself. What people don't understand, the majority of it is driven by the same people who put on these martial art halls of fame and make people pay for their honor, where there's certificate swapping going on. They're the ones driving the fraud, calling people frauds. Now, the reason that happens and people go along with it is to kiss up to these individuals because it's become a vicious circle. They do it because they're afraid that if they don't do it, they won't be considered legitimate. And they're afraid of falling into that. And then that's going to hurt their schools and empty their schools. So they go to event after event after event. They listen to these people, and the guys doing it, they selectively pick out one or two people a year, they call them frauds or big names. They did it for George Dillman. They've done it to Shia Kim. They do it to me. They've done it to Bodie Sanders. I mean, Bodie is just a life coach, in essence, trying to bring back all the ethics in martial arts. And they especially went after him. And a good book I recommend is you should read his book, Defiance, The Dark Side of Martial Arts. I really recommend people read that because you'll get an insight without him naming names per se, but you'll get an insight of what's really going on in the martial arts. And this is because there's no regulation. There's no regulatory control. You don't, and you have justice now so far to reach the common person. You know, look, for me to prosecute someone for defamation, I'm looking at $1 million in the court expenses. And even if I prevail, there's no guarantee I could perfect my judgment. So why would I spend $1 million on a defamation case? You know, and I did it actually with Soldier Fortune because it went a step further there, and I could prove damages there. But that was, you know, that is something we have to ask ourselves as a society. When is enough dishonesty going to stop? When is it going to be enough?
That's a great point. And a lot of people nowadays, they call it pay to play. Actors, like, I'm not going to mention names that I've been involved in sets with. They're paying to get roles. They're actually paying to be in a movie. Remember, like, when back in the day, if you were an actor, like, you would actually get paid to do the role. They're paying to get in a role. Musicians, they're paying to do. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, genuine, you know, natural, organic, like, hey, we like the way you do your karate, or we like the way you act. Here's a X amount of money. Can you come in this film? That's the way it used to be. Nowadays, people are paying to get in.
Well, you see this really prevalent in C films, and especially with C film, you know, and D film movie stars, you know, their movies. Okay. You really do. They might get some money, but everyone below them, they're paying to get in, or they're part of the scam selling it. Oh, be in my movie.
Absolutely.
You know? And it's been around. I mean, they used to be, oh, you have to pay the casting agent to be part of his agency and registered with the agency, and then you can get the part. See, that used to be another scam they used to run for years. You know, pay me $1,200 and we'll get you, you know, I promise sometime this year you'll get a job. Of course, the job will be for like, you know, $100, but
I'm sure there was other jobs that got them people, you know, in films back in the 80s and 90s. I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot. I know some people. I know people who ran agencies like that.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm sure.
And of course, you know, I was treated to the casting couch experience. I'll tell you a funny story. I have a friend of mine, Jacob Bressa. He's one of my black belts. He's a premier Israeli kapap teacher in the United States. He's also, you know, I like to say he's one of my first black belts. And he had a thing called BJ's Casting. And I used to laugh at, first of all, I used to laugh at the just the name BJ Casting. And I used to crack up, especially because one day he says, "Hey, Frank, mind the phones for me," because I showed up at his office to go out to lunch with him. Right. And he goes out to use the bathroom. In comes this most beautiful brunette. I mean, just drop dead gorgeous. She walks in, she's got nothing but a trench coat on, lays down on the couch, opens up the trench coat, totally nude, and you know, and it was like, and I didn't know what to say to her at the moment, but I looked over and said, "I'm just the janitor."
Oh,
and
wow.
she just covered up real quickly, ran out, and out in the lobby waiting. That was her husband. He was like okay with it. It was like Hollywood is the most strange, attractive magnet for the most bizarre people I've ever met on the planet, and yet they're going to lecture people on ethics. They're going to lecture people on politics. I mean, it's like, you know, the majority of them never got past high school.
I'm dying right now from that story, bro. I almost fell off my chair. I was trying to hit the mute button on my mic because I didn't want to have it come through because I have one of those kind of crazy laughs. That's an amazing story, bro. So I'm going to go back to stunt training. We're going to go back there. non-fighters. I've noticed that non-fighters are actually pretty adaptable at learning stunts and like choreography for fighting. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't know. This is my experience, and you've had much more experience than I have. But I mean, they're obviously athletic, but like, so I was working on a film set with someone. And I was like, "Hey, man, do you do any sports? Do you box? Do you do mixed martial arts or anything?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "The hell?" But he did a great job.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
what's your experience with non-fighters?
Well, look at Bloodsport. Majority of people in Bloodsport were strippers. Did you know that?
No.
Oh wow.
They weren't martial artists.
Wow.
They weren't martial artists. They were strippers. I actually had to train several of them. They were male, like Chippendales dancer. The guy who's the Aikido guy who comes in and he breaks the board with a jumping knee in the beginning of the movie. He was a male dancer.
Wow.
I mean, you have no idea what I had to do to make Bloodsport successful. I helped with the casting. I helped in the wardrobe. I actually sent to the United States to get actual uniforms sent to Hong Kong to put Jean-Claude in them, first of all. They didn't have anything for them. They had like sewed up silk pajamas. I mean, I was like, are you kidding me? And so I ended up doing that. I ended up working with David Worth, God bless him. He was one of those people. I think one of the reasons Bloodsport was so successful is David would listen to me and say, look, put the camera here. And we would meet at night, or we would ride together in a van from the set to our hotel. And during that time period, I said, look, what are you going to do tomorrow? Oh, I'm going to do this. I said, why don't you throw a handheld up there and shoot it like this and that? We would talk shop. He goes, that's a great idea. And I would quietly do that because I didn't want to PO the director, And it's kind of funny when they did the first film cut of the movie, they used a lot of the director's camera angles, and the film ended up shelved for 2 years. Jean-Claude went back in and got to bless him for this, because you got to give him credit. He knew what the angles were that I shot. He remembered that I'm a real fighter. He trusted my instinct. He said, oh my gosh, look at what Frank's got here. Oh my gosh. And, it came out like so strong that that's why Bloodsport was so successful. Same thing with the music. I mean, you got to give credit to Paul Herzog. He doesn't get enough credit, I think, for really making that movie a success. He gave it its own definitive sound that still lingers today,
Great.
And so there's a lot of elements. Yeah. No film is one person's work, but I'll tell you this much. I get really irritated with Lettich going out there and he's taking credit like it's his film. He's the real power behind it. He knows what's going on. And one of the reasons I think he got upset with me is the fact that I made it very clear that, one, I wrote Bloodsport. It took it to a concrete form. It was called Return of the Ninja. I registered in 1980. I did it because I had just done my article with Black Belt Magazine. It was released in November 1980, and it was coming out. And I knew that somebody might want to jump on that. And this way I had a treatment and I had a screenplay. And his own attorney represented my project. Okay? And taken to the studios. It was taken away from him and given to Mark DeSalle, who became the next producer on it. And there are notes from Vestron, Anastasia Jenkins, who's the executive there, saw the script. Peter Deal, who was one of the heads of the Producers Guild, was one of the producers on it early on. He worked with it, and a number of other people have seen it. So for him to sit there and say, oh, I came up with the idea for Bloodsport, riding around in a truck with Frank Dukes. And then I said, oh, that would be a great idea for a movie. That's an bold-faced lie. It's a bold-faced lie. In fact, if you talk to Mark DeSalle met Sheldon doing the film that I helped Sheldon. I went in my pocket and my time. I helped Sheldon do a film called Firefight, a short he wanted to do. I helped him even write it. And then I stepped back and didn't take credit for it. Then he had me play it. I don't want to be an actor. Okay. I never wanted to be an actor. He had me play in the film the character Kuda. Okay. I did that, broke my leg or injured my leg doing that, by the way. Doesn't, because of the way he handles a film set, people get hurt. Jacob Bressler wanted to beat him with a baseball bat because the way he was treated in dealing with that project and making it work. Sheldon used all my contacts, real professional stunt people, real casting directors, real producers. He got everybody through me to make that happen for him. So he had a reel, and he's going to turn around and put a knife in my back about it. Okay. And then on top of that, so he meets Mark DeSalle, who's editing his own film in a editing room adjacent to his editing room for Firefly. Mark tells him he'd like to do a film on kickboxing as a martial arts film. Sheldon brings Mark to my school, okay, to let him know that he should hire Sheldon to do kickboxing, because at that time we were a writing team. We had written 3 projects before that together. That's why if you look at the notes on Bloodsport, you'll see that Sheldon Lettich and myself are represented by the same attorney because we were a writing team on the project. But as a friend, I gave Sheldon all writing credits. I didn't take the writing credits to Bloodsport so he could build a career for himself. Because like I said, I had no interest in being a filmmaker at that time at all. My interests were protecting the nation. I was dealing in other matters that were of a higher caliber than making movies. Okay? I turned around, and at this meeting with Mark DeSalle, and you can talk to Mark, and I suggest you talk to Mark. We were talking about what his vision was, and I tell him about my script, Bloodsport. And I take him over to the article on me in Black Belt Magazine. And he's really fascinated with that. But we figured to appease Sheldon, he had his own ideas on how he wanted the story to be told. So he hired Sheldon. And that's why if you look at his contract, Sheldon is a work for hire contract. Paragraph 1, it says that they purchased the story from me. He understood they got the story. Yet he's running around saying that. He did such a shitty job on the story that they brought in 2 other writers. You never hear about them, right? Mel Friedman, Christopher Cosby, right? I mean, if you can look behind me, their credits are right on the poster.
Right.
Nobody talks to them. I sat down Mel Friedman and Chris, and you know what? They got it. They got what the story was in one meeting after 4 hours, and they went back to what my story was, and they redid it. With only one caveat. They had me breaking in to meet my instructor by stealing a sword. That was their little play, because they wanted to show that martial art redeems you. They didn't put in, which would have been a far more interesting detail of me, of how I really met Tanaka, but that would have been taking too long on film time. So it wasn't worth it.
You changed kind of movie history with martial arts films 100%. I mean, when I saw that Bad Boy when I was young, I mean, I can't even tell you how old I was. I'm 42 now, so I was very young. My father and I used to watch all these great martial arts films, and I catch Bloodsport, and I was just like, man, this is special. Like you said, the soundtrack too. I'm a musician. I'm a drummer. I love music, a lot of passion for it. Like I love soundtracks. I love looking at the composer, like Rocky IV, Vince Nicoli is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. I love like the training montages and like the cheesy stuff, man. But
they were very real. See, this is the thing. I brought reality
yeah.
to it. That's the way I was trained.
And I still work out
grabbing the fish. That's what I was trained to do. Grab a chicken. That's what boxers are trained to do. It's not something really new. But to see it there, the way it played out, how it did it, serving tea blindfolded, sparring blindfolded. And here's the thing. I mean, when Bloodsport was released, Mark Corcione for Bloodsport 2 wanted to hire me. So he wanted, in doing his own due diligence, he actually had me come up to Barstow, California, where he issued a challenge. Okay. And I actually, let me backtrack this, why the challenge got done. When Bloodsport came out, Don the Dragon Wilson came out with his movie, which was an imitation of Bloodsport. It was a total knockoff of Bloodsport. They found out about it, I guess, whatever. So he comes out with his movie. I don't even know what the name of it is, and he issues in the Variety magazine a public challenge to Jean-Claude Van Damme, calling Jean-Claude a phony, that he's not a kickboxing champion. And I don't think Jean-Claude was a professional kickboxing champion between you and me. But he was a champion. He did fight. I want to make that clear to people. You know, in the court TV case, I'm going to digress here for a second, but the court TV, the way people have taken that and said, I called Jean-Claude a fraud. And no, I never said that. I said, when it came time to do the movie, I said he was not a Kumite champion. And somehow that got twisted, you know, by the attorneys and how they do their paperwork and what have you. And that's why he needed me to be there to choreograph him, because there's a big difference between Kumite fighting and kickboxing. Okay.
Of course there is.
We know that today by just looking at a kickboxer and an MMA fighter. Okay. Very simple to know that today. So Don issued this challenge to Jean-Claude, knowing Jean-Claude could not accept the challenge. He's under contract for a movie that's just released. He's got to go on tour. How is he going to fight it? Okay. But to the public, they didn't know that. So I stepped forward for Jean-Claude to spare him and say, hey, Don, you're a professional fighter. I'm a professional fighter. Why don't we just fight? Not a word. I answered that call. Okay? Not a word. Mike Corcione heard about that. Mike wanted to say, you really put yourself out there on this film when you did your Black Belt magazine article. It's sort of like, that was an open challenge to everybody. You know, yeah, it was. You know, that's why I was in Black Belt magazine. I'm retiring. Anybody want to say anything? Step forward now. Here's your chance. Not a peep. Only one guy came forward. There was a guy named Ken Carter. And I don't know what happened to Ken, if he ended up doing the fighting or not. But Ken was the only guy I know that came forward. Real talented guy. Nobody hears about him. But he was a really great person. Great athlete.
You know, speaking of the films.
Well, let me finish though.
No, of course.
So let me finish. So Mike Corcione then advertises the open challenge. I know they sent stuff to Don Wilson. I'm going to be there, and I'm fighting for nothing this time. And I only agreed to do this exhibition bout with Corcione, and he's on the Justin Harvey show talking about this challenge, so you can hear it for yourself. If anybody wants to know, they can go to my website, frankdukesbloodsport.com. They can find it there. They can actually listen to the interview. And what happened was, I only agreed to do this if I fought people blindfolded. I wanted to prove that what happened in the movie, I really do. I did this for Katana Magazine. There's footage of me chasing the owner-editor of Katana Magazine around, and you can see me pulling my kicks about an inch from his head.
Wow.
Okay.
I was going to say, Adam, you got to be feeling this, my brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Adam's going to be trying that shit tomorrow in his front yard. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, it's a skill. There's some tricks. There's some tricks of the trade, which I got from my ninja training. Okay, that you wouldn't know. It's how you navigate in a house that has no light. How are you going to navigate through a house with no light? So it's a secret way of doing things and actually spotting where things are. In fact, there's to prove that it can work. If you go on YouTube, you can see a video of a young man who's lost his eyes to cancer. He doesn't have any eyes in his head, and he's riding bicycles and he's playing basketball using the same technique. And it's a form of echolocation where you make a noise with your throat and it comes back to you. Okay. And then there's also being hypersensitive to heat and airflow when you're in a room, so you know if somebody's there. And these are things I trained myself to do, and I was trained in to do because I was trained by a real ninja and someone who, by the way, has murder convictions, which I think Adam can talk about because he basically found out some news yesterday because his wife does the due diligence for the UN, for crying out loud. Yeah. She's an expert.
And I want to say this for everybody listening: do your own research. Don't listen to what people have to say about this man. Don't listen to what people are going to say of this man. I urge you to do your own research and to do good research, because the research I came up with is absolute definite that Senzo Tanaka was a real person, and it is collaborative with everything that Frank has said, bar none.
It's absolutely 110% correct, man. And I want to talk more about films. Lionheart, okay, one of my personal favorites. Again, going back to music, I'm a music guy and a fighting guy, but soundtrack, fight choreography in that film. And we're going to go to another film after this one where some of the best fight choreographies I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, Lionheart, again, was a ripoff of like my stuff from Bloodsport, the original script that I had and that Sheldon got access to. In the original, you know, I add some fights where they're single fights. You understand? That's the difference in my script versus Bloodsport, the movie. And mine is like a series of fights that leads to the tournament. Okay, so in that regard, I talked to Jean-Claude and I even talked to Sheldon, and I said, hey, you know, there's another vision of how Bloodsport could have been done, which is without the tournament and doing it in a single fight format. Okay. And that's all it is. Being chased by the two guys. Come on. Right. Same device. Fighting for a good cause. That's something I, you know, in my case, it was for Tanaka, for his honor, whatever. In this one, it's to put money on the table for his family. Okay. That's simple. They changed enough of it that it couldn't be about me, in the sense of I didn't have a brother who was a drug addict and got burned, and you know I would fight for that reason, and I never went AWOL. So there's, you know, they put in their own devices. I'm not going to claim it's 100% plagiarism. I'm not going to say that at all, but they cannot deny my contribution to it and why it came about, how it came about. And here's the thing: they had a skeleton to work with. How do you flesh out the skeleton? That skeleton is fleshed out by the choreography. Who did all the casting for the fighters? I did. Who did the choreography? I did. Who trained up some of the fighters? I did, you know, for the movie. And there's a lot of talent that came out of that movie because of me. Stuart Wilson was one of my black belts. He went on to do the rundown and become a double for Bruce Willis in his films. Paco Prieto. I trained Paco. Paco is one of my black belts and is a Mexican Kumite fighter. Sheldon knew that. Was he going to say, oh, that's a lie? Excuse me. Paco comes straight out of that. He fought Kumite fights in Mexico with me. And he ended up starring in Only the Strong. You know?
Wow.
That's the movie I was going to next. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, and there's other people who fought that they're part of that movie, that were in that movie, that were students of mine and people I trained up, you know, and again, I did the choreography of the movie. And here's the interesting: Sheldon's out there saying, "Oh, he found out I was a fraud by some guy named Richard Bender." Well, Bender was actually the husband to my ex-wife. Okay, and whenever that went down, we were in a huge divorce proceedings. People don't always tell the truth when they're going through that because they have economic gain, whatever. You know, that's kind of important information. If you're going to check out a source, you want to name a source, you think about that, especially if they recanted their story. You think an honorable person would take that into account. So that's kind of like what happened there. And so, yeah, I mean, Lionheart, again, really changed a lot of people. And it was interesting because I really got to know Jean-Claude, how well he could work and what he could do and what he couldn't do. And you want to hear a funny story?
Please.
Okay. Absolutely.
Let it roll, brother.
Well, Jean-Claude was a bit of a ladies' man. He was known for, you know, having his flirtations on set. And of course, it made his wife crazy. And so we decided to get into his trailer one day, knowing, you know, how he was about his space. And we went out with the wardrobe people and we got the largest bloomers we could find. I mean, this thing looked like it was underwear that could fit an elephant. And we rustled up his bed, right? And we put it in his bed, and we're shaking the trailer as he's walking up to it from the other side, right? And had the window open. So he comes in and he thinks, somebody's in there, making love in his trailer. And of course we like, oh, it made it look like someone went out the window and he's in there. And of course he's looking at these huge bloomers and he comes out screaming about it. Who's in here, looking for a person who possibly they could fit, which was no human being. But we all laughed at it. But that he would do tricks too. I mean, there's a real great funny side to Jean-Claude that people don't know. And I don't want to see people vilify him. It really breaks my heart to see people vilify him. He doesn't deserve that. Yes, he did some things to me that weren't ethical, in my opinion. Sometimes I think maybe it was the drugs talking, maybe it was desperation, maybe he really didn't believe he did what he did, I have no idea. All I know is he at least came clean about his substance abuse. And he admits that, that affects your judgment, your memory. And I can go on and on.
It seems like he's trying to rehabilitate. One of my favorite lines of his is in Double Impact. And I'm going to try my best impersonation of Jean-Claude Van Damme here. Never in my life would I ever wear a black stick underwear. I don't know why that sticks with me. It's just one of those lines, man. It's funny. What does stick with me is Only the Strong, though, my brother. Like, first of all, that's a complete different style of fighting movie. Like, it has just very unique style. And
that's where I got all my that's where I introduced capoeira to Sheldon when I did Only the Strong. The Michelle Kesey character in the movie, who's Paredes, who has his knee broken, was supposed to be a capoeira guy, but he was really Jean-Claude's, lifelong friend. He was a boxer, so we tried to make it work with him. But it was so fascinating for Sheldon that he wanted to do a film like that. And he found someone who actually wrote a script like that, and it obviously appealed to him. But of all the people they found to do the choreography, it was myself. So again, I did all the choreography on it. But then all of a sudden they brought in a technical advisor, a guy named Amon Santos, and they breached my contract by, again, Amon, now all of a sudden he's going to have the fight. I have to share fight choreography credit with him. I was guaranteed a stunt coordinator credit, and I would be the stunt coordinator in the film. They breached their contract again, brought in Artie Maleshi, another stunt coordinator. And once they got everything they needed out of me, after I was done with all my choreography, setting everything up, they kind of sent me home. They kind of like, would set me up with like all sorts of problems, like just dumb stuff. Like Artie be too tired on the film. I mean, he was working like 3 other movies at the same time. I caught Artie fast asleep on the set, and I was in a scene, the chop shot scene where you see the car drop. I wouldn't let anybody do that but me. And they also blow up a car in that scene. I ended up going there, and this is the thing that I think got me in real trouble with these guys. But it wasn't so much. They were more afraid of what I was going to do, because they had a guy in there rigging the explosion. All these guys are in nylon covered coveralls in the fight scene. Well, you cannot have nylon on when you're doing a fire scene. That stuff will melt, to a person's skin. Then on top of it, I'm looking at the special effects guy. He's dead tired. He's not paying attention. He's obviously come from the set with Artie, and they rig the car to explode, and some idiot, puts in gasoline.
What?
A baggie full of gasoline in the car under the seat. When I saw that, I ran over there and I ripped the wires out of the scene. So when they went to blast, it didn't blast. And then I took Artie and this other guy aside and told him what he had done wrong. He would have obviously lost his career at that point, and we just kind of kept it quiet to ourselves. And he got rid of the gasoline,
And probably his life, his career. That's very dangerous.
First of all, it would have killed I don't know how many people.
Yeah.
Sheldon was hurrying the scene. Sheldon tells a story of me walking to a scene with my phone on. What he doesn't tell you is he didn't close the set, which is what they were supposed to do. And I'm not in the scene. I'm actually walking past him in a window. I'm walking on the outside of the building. They're filming on the inside of the building. Obviously, I can't see what's going on the inside. And I walked through. Big deal. It really didn't disturb the scene in any way. Okay? That's why the ADs and people didn't stop me.
That's incredible. I mean, when you think about it, like that's a big production film. You know, at the time, it was very big. I remember seeing it in the theaters, like to have that kind of negligence. Like, I've been on set where it's been negligent, and Adam will vouch for me, man. Like, you know, like I'm a tough guy. Like, I'm a very nice guy, but at the same time, like, you know, I'm not no punk. Like, if I got to do something, I'll do it. But like sometimes I look at things, not even if I had to partake in it, but I look at it for other actors. I'm like, yeah, you should probably make sure that they check everything and make sure all the safety protocols are in play, especially if you do action films, man, especially if you have explosions, car accidents.
Well, luckily, I you know, I was lucky I was there and I had the training I had by Hubie.
Absolutely.
They in that scene, they were dropping the car, okay, on the welder. And I was the welder in that scene. I told you I wouldn't let anybody else do it. You know why? They forgot to take out the undercarriage of the car. Okay, which means I had 1 inch of clearance, 1 inch, in one small pocket under the thing when they dropped it. On top of that, they didn't block it, so the damn thing could roll.
Right.
You know, so I had to block the car, and I remember looking at the AD and how he looked back at me because he was hurrying me along, and they were all, you know, being pissy with me. And I just looked at him. I says, where are the blocks, dumbass? And he looked at me and he goes, oh, shit. And this other stunt coordinator, who's supposed to be stunt coordinating that scene because I'm in it, I ended up stunt coordinating. And again, like I said, it wasn't, I don't blame Artie because Artie respected me as a stuntman and a stunt coordinator, and he knew I'd take care of it. And I did, you know? Oh. But it just goes to show you there were 3 sets of eyes on that, and I was the only one who caught it.
That's what a good stunt coordinator does. That's your job, is not only to show everyone everything, but also protect. Like, you know, you got to make sure the safety of everyone is, you know, first up. That's first up to bat, and then you could roll. And, you know, people got to trust you too. Like when you do stunts, you got to trust your stunt coordinator. Otherwise, you're not going to get those. You're not going to get those great scenes. You're not going to get those full commitments if someone doesn't trust you, you know. And it seems like you're a great guy to work for. Also, outside of movies, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I only had 1 injury ever, and that was in Bloodsport, and it was the first scene out. And that's because they used this guy for the Arab guy. Remember, that snatches the coin. He ends up losing his tooth. Okay, he was not a trained stuntman, and I told the guy, "Do not step in to the shot. You don't need to put your head there. The hand will come out, his elbow will come out, and if you just put yourself forward over here, it'll look like you got hit." No, he doesn't listen to me. He goes forward. He gets smacked. That was it. And then the guy has a nerve to say, "Oh, and I got knocked out. They had to take." No, you weren't knocked out, dude. We shot that shot like 2 times, you know? So.
Do you put tape markers down? I was actually going to ask you this question. I had it on my notes here. Do you put like tape markers down when you do stunts? Because I know some people do and some people don't.
That's old. That's old school.
That's old school. Yeah.
That's old school. I think if you're really trained and you're really good at your job, you can hit that mark without having to have it. Now, there are certain situations I would definitely put it down where if there's going to be some kind of lethal threat, if you miss that mark, okay, like for example, something's being hurled, you know, it's on a hydraulic, pulley system, so you don't get too close. Sometimes I'll do it where the air rams are, you know, so guys, when they're running, because they're going to hit an explosion, so they hit the center of the air ram, you know, that's important.
Yeah, that's
but
wild
I'll do it in a very clever way. My marks will be, you know, not a tape, it'll be a rock, or it'll be something that looks indigenous to the scene, you know.
Right. I've actually done that with the rock before, like not the actual rock, but like just a rock, you know, where I was doing like a little fight scene, and I just put some rocks down to like make sure I had my footing right, like in terms of like, you know, where I was in the camera. Because that's another thing too, is that, you know, sometimes you don't want to step out of lens, and then you do the whole sequence well, and then they're like, well, you're out of the lens. I'm like, oh man, I need like, because you're doing a lot. And it's so hard as an actual fighter. Like I'm someone that boxed for a while and, trained in martial arts, is that, sometimes when you start doing those scenes, like you start getting into like the actual, that's why I asked you that question earlier. You start getting into fight mode and you're like, hey, and then next thing you know, like, wait a minute, that's not what we rehearsed. And so it's a lot to think about and process. And then you also have to be aware of the camera.
Well, in the movie Bloodsport, one guy he got so jacked up, he actually started hitting Bolo.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So, and Bolo got so upset, he choked him out for real. So, you don't hear about that. Guy was a great actor. Guy was a great guy. He the guy who did it, it was just more of a communication breakdown in the languages. He didn't get to understand what was going on. So you can't fault him.
Yeah.
No, you can't. You can't.
I'll tell you, I got hurt on doing a movie called Force 5. Nope, not too many people know that. I was in that movie. In fact, they wouldn't let me do a fight scene because of my skill sets would outshine everybody there. And that's the truth. Pat Johnson put me in. I was so fast with my hands. Pat went, so they had me work with Richard Norton in a fight scene. And Richard basically throws I go to a locker and I get a gun and he throws this star that's hanging around his neck, real campy again, the star thing. And of course the star, is supposed to hits me in the rib cage and I fly back. And the way they did that is they had it on a wire gun and they have the things and they shoot it. And there's a cork board and I'm using underneath my clothes, and there's steel backing and it shoots that. He didn't trust anybody to have that too much. Well, thankfully they had me doing it. And now I know why Pat had me also do it. Because of the safety involved. They shot the damn thing, he does the thing and they shoot the thing at me and the line broke. And so I put my hand up and it sticks in my arm for real.
Oh, look at that.
And then I just go, but then they don't want to fight me for the scene. So they go, no, we're going to shoot it again. And so they shot it into my side.
It's wild. Like when I was on set for a couple things, just like doing some like stunts and whatnot and like, fighting and even training at academies, they're like, you have to slow down, I'm not tooting my own horn. It's just like, we know like one tempo, like, we all go hard. Adam is one of the greatest, like most, consummate professional trainers I've ever seen. And he puts in all his work, man. When you get to train with him, Frank, like he's a great person to be around. Like he doesn't stop. He's got a tremendous heart, passion. He works on things and quick, fast, like ridiculously fast. So, I mean, when I get it,
you have to do it that way.
Yeah.
Listen, you have to do that way. You have to train, fight.
He's
fast
1,000% every day when he does it.
Fight.
Yeah. He's 1,000%.
Yeah. It's just, you've got to, you can't get your timing, your rhythm. I mean, you look at a professional boxer. Do you see him hitting the bag at half speed? Do you see him sparring at half speed? Do you see them saying, okay, you stay there. I'm going to throw a jab and a cross and a hook and you go down. Do you see that?
Exactly.
You see it in martial arts all the time, but you don't see it there. Okay. Yeah. No, when I train my guys, we go. We'll
100%.
I'll do a technique, and my guys will put on gear in the old days, and we'd go pop, 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 pop. No, we're not digging in to hit 100%, but we're making contact just like if it was a real fight, and doing the techniques, so you can really employ them, and that includes gun, knife, chain.
Before I get into chain, that's amazing. Before I get into my next subject, I want to ask you, what are some of your favorite martial arts films or films in general of all time?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all,
it's kind of hard.
No, it's easy for me. Actually.
Okay, great.
I go back to my youth. Okay. First of all, I would say Blood on the Sun. I think it was with James Cagney. It's probably the first martial art film ever made. People don't even know about it. It's black and white. That kind of introduced me to it. I was a kid and I was watching, TV, Channel 9. I'll never forget it. They had the black and whites, James Cagney movies. Mm-hmm. And then later on, Wild Wild West would come on. You'd watch that, as a kid. But for me, the movies that influenced me, of course, was Bruce Lee's
sure.
And, Enter the Dragon, Return of the Dragon, which actually came out first. The Billy Jack. Billy Jack had a profound impact on me, because he was, that's where I saw the guy was about something else. It was about fighting demons using martial arts and he was one guy against many, and I could identify with that because when you're a poor kid, you can't do much, the other kids always have money to go out together to the movies. They have money to go out to eat together after school. When I was working, I was like, I was spent a lot of time alone. So that's why I probably got, really good at martial arts. And so those films were kind of profound for me. And of course, the Kung Fu series, when it became about the wisdom, that's what I really found interesting, not the movements, but the wisdom. And so that's where I got in my head, hey, maybe I can do this. And Bruce Lee, I got a book by Bruce Lee, and it was his original book, which was his 5 little books put together. It was a hardback. And I'd never forgive this guys whoever stole that from me because it was very sentimental value to me. But he had the right way and correct way when you look at the book. But the main thing is I learned that he himself never learned more than 5 years. He was never formally trained. He taught himself. And I used that as an example. I said, well, if he can do that, then I can do it. And then I started to see the reality and the truth of it. And the more I was training on my own, the more I understood more than the people who were supposedly going to be my teachers. It was kind of ironic. They were locked into this blinder thing. And I'm like seeing everybody go, no, you're not any different than that guy. You guys are kind of different. Maybe you got a new twist on how you're doing it. But then I started to develop my system because I started to say, okay, why does this work? I started to attack it from a scientific point of view. Why does it work? How does it work? When does it work? What is it used for? And I would do that with every technique. And I go, this one's crap. This one works. This is good. That, I could, wait a minute. If I change this one, it should do this. And I go, wait a minute. They're teaching it wrong.
That's what I love about Adam.
And I ended up finding out that there was 12 angles of attack with 12 corresponding angles of evasion that will produce the unguarded moment in your opponent. That's it for all martial arts. I started to understand the laws of combat.
Yes.
And then I based my art based on the laws of combat. Closest weapon, closest target. Okay? Real simple. I gave a demonstration just recently to a guy who's like a top black belt, and he was white because he came to attack me, and I just did a simple move with my foot, and he went flying like 10 feet away, and he's like, what just happened? I caught him at the exact precise moment when he was supposed to, plant his balance foot and swept it out and then just get, and that was enough with his own momentum to take him out of picture. And he was just like, I don't believe I just saw what happened, and I do that with people all the time. And that's how I teach. I teach people the laws of combat. And I said, the rest is up to you.
That's why I'm interested in seeing.
You have to discover based on your own etymology, your own journey. I'm not going to cheat you on that. If you understand all the body mechanics, schools are good for teaching you proper body biomechanics, but putting it together, application, you really need the science. And if you don't have the science, you're just winging it. And that's the difference between what I do and what most martial artists do, is they're winging it. They're going out there and hoping this thing's going to work, hoping they'll do this. I sit there and go, no, I know exactly how to attack the situation. I know exactly how to break it down from angles. I know exactly what to do based on what he's doing. And more importantly, I know how to anticipate what he's doing based on my ability to read them, which I developed very early on,
100, bro. That's why I want to see you and Adam collaborate, because you got two great minds together. Adam's very similar with his training. Adam, you want to talk about what you do with your training? And because I've never felt so comfortable in my entire life learning a completely different philosophy. And Adam's very thorough, but I'll let Adam take it and break it down what he does.
Sure.
I guess I would basically say that I don't believe in one style. That's something that I'm absolutely against because I feel like it kind of holds people back a little bit. I'm more about kind of learning anything and everything that I possibly can, and then splitting the inefficiencies and taking the efficiencies away from that. So only using what is efficient to me as an individual. I think that martial arts is very much an individual walk for every person that does it. And so it's not always going to be the same for every one person. So it's very much about, again, I'll equate it to the buffet idea. You guys live in Vegas, you go to the buffet, there's like 20 dishes out there. You guys take the stuff that looks good and you kind of leave the other stuff. Well, it's in my mind that, you know, sometimes we leave that other stuff and we don't know that there might be really beneficial things in that those other dishes. So it's kind of like, I don't know, man. I would say my philosophy is to never stop learning, to learn absolutely every single thing you can, and then to use and utilize what works for you as an individual.
Well, I agree with you and I disagree with you. I'll explain to you why. It all depends on what our journey is. What is our goal? For some people, martial arts is a form of therapy. So for them, what works, what doesn't work is really inconsequential. It really comes down to what makes them function as a human being. What are the therapeutic values for them? So it really comes down to, again, the complementary opposites of how the world functions. For some, what's really important is being able to fight, being able to deliver, devastating techniques. And I think it's a blend of the two. I think you have to have a balance between the two. And I know we're in agreement on that because that's like the missing component that people are seeing. So, some people, again, like I said, they don't want anything to do with what's functional. I mean, I saw a video, you sent me a video of someone, we won't mention his name, but it was hysterical what he was doing as his randori. I mean, I rolling on the ground like a child. I was like, are you kidding me? Are you really kidding me? And people buy into this? I mean, any reasonable person. But then I say, okay, maybe they're doing it as a form of play. It's a form of leisure. That's their hobby. That's their thing. Sort of like, Society for Creative Anachronisms. They're role players. Okay. If that's what their purpose is, God bless them. But don't sell me on the idea that when you're a role player, that you're a warrior, because you're not. And there's a big difference between the two. And I'm a person who's actually, perpetrated violence on people. I'm not going to say to what degree, but we're going to leave it at that. And there's a huge difference when that real confrontation comes down than a sporting event. Okay. When you're in the ring and you have a referee, when you have people, and that's another way to train. And then there's another way to train for movies. And so people really need to figure out what it is they want to specialize in or what they want to focus on and what the reason is for why they do what they do. And that's why I call it the mixed martial arts, because these guys are going in the ring and they're doing it for adulation. They're doing it for recognition. They're doing it for validation. But you can't get validation by looking externally. They're going about it the wrong way. And that's the sad thing about it. They can get it, but they're not going to find it where they're looking for it. Sort of like fishing in a dry hole, or a temporary fix, getting drunk. That doesn't get rid of your problems. They're going to happen the next day. Going to get drunk again, See, better to eliminate the problem. And that's what martial art teaches you, is how to really dissect a threat, how to mitigate the threat or neutralize it. That's really what the study of martial arts is. It's a military arts. It's not sports. Okay. And people best understand that. I had a black belt of mine. He was involved in a confrontation with a champion MMA fighter. He happened to be a, special forces soldier. He was trained by me. And the MMA guy was not going to go away. He was going to put him down and hurt him. And that fight was over in one move. The guy went to try to take him down with a leg trap, and he did exactly what I taught him to do: take his thumb and shove it right in his eye. Fight was over that quick. That's not legal in MMA, because that guy trained that way. Not everybody's going to fight that way. They're going to fight dirty on the street. And that's why you need to know that. And that's another quality I tried to kind of bring to Lionheart. If you remember the opening scene where the Scotsman puts his hand out, right? And Jean-Claude goes to shake him and he pokes him in the eye.
Yeah.
You know, and that was to teach people. And that comes from years of experience. And that translates into the films I've done. So how can you call me a ignorant rod when it's right there in front of you, when you can see what it is I bring to the table, what I put on the screen? It's right there in black and white.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's what Johnny and I talked about, man, is it would be very stupid or ignorant of people to judge whether or not you're an actual legitimate martial artist, considering the fact that you're responsible for some of the greatest fight choreography on film. You cannot have that experience and teach people that type of thing without having that experience yourself. And so I think that it's absolutely irrelevant that people would even question you as a martial artist because of what you've done and what you've shown and what you've accomplished.
Yeah, well, like I said before, and for anybody to call me a fake and a fraud, you know, they have to suspend all critical thinking. It really comes down to that. You know, like I said earlier, you know, to get to the level of what I've done, you can't imagine the due diligence that people have performed. And we're talking professional people who do due diligence, not somebody just surfing the computer. I'm talking people who have access to real databases, who actually have access to detectives, et cetera. And we can go on. And, you know, I mean, just the top three, you know, Black Belt Magazine. They didn't take my word for it. They got a hold of Dave German. They got who I fought. They got a hold of a variety of people. Then you had the Black Dragons that existed. They just had to get a hold of them. They'd been featured in the magazines for years. All right. You have Harper Collins, for crying out loud. You know, I had to sit there in front of a law firm for 5 days answering questions and providing proof before my book could come out. Okay. You have, you know, the U.S. Navy, when I was doing my contributions and teaching them, you know, they checked that out, you know, and I've worked any number of high-level security jobs, and that would not transpire if I didn't check out, you know, and so that's just assumptions that somebody with critical thinking would go through. They would know that. Or like Tanaka, very simple. You can check it out. Because a reporter lied, he lied. I said, we couldn't find anything. Everybody assumed there's nothing to be found.
Sure.
And as you found yourself out, far from it. On top of that, the only sources he used, right, are my business competitors. The only, like we're talking about this Viking samurai guy, the only people he has on his show are my competitors. You know?
Yeah.
The people driving this thing on Facebook, these big sites, they're all people who go and attend these bogus, you know, martial art honor deals, you know, pay for your honor. You know, Martial Art Hall of Fame, 2,500 people show up, they're going to get an award. Come on, for what? Yeah. Hey, for $100, you can get the plastic belt. Or do you want the ring? Or do you want the, you know? And that's why they keep people afraid. And the reason they keep pushing, like it goes full circle what we're talking about. This is why they keep pushing this agenda of attacking people, saying they're fraud. This is so prevalent right now. And they're getting away with it because it's criminal behavior. And if you really look at them, and my wife did a big investigation on this. She's the one who found for me, you know, and turned it over to Frank Parlato, because she's an investigative reporter herself. She turned it over to him, all the data on Tanaka. And when that happened, that's when Art Voice opened up for me. And they even gave me my own column, for crying out loud, for a while. And I was writing for Art Voice, you know? And quite frankly, when you talked about, you complimented me on keeping cool and not responding. My wife's probably a good reason for that. You know, she really is. In fact, one of these characters, I'm going to say it right now, is he actually, you know, assaulted my wife and her girlfriend. we've kept quiet about it. I haven't used his name, but he's pretty much shown everybody who he is, but trying to get out ahead of it. You know what I mean? But there's police reports filed on it. And she basically didn't say anything to me for quite a while, simply because she knew she didn't want me to react. You know, so I got to give credit to her, quite honestly, my lovely wife, you know, that she had the foresight to see what was going on. And they were getting ready to jump me at this penthouse party where they were dealing up coke in the back room. They were all high as a kite. We walked in that, and it was not a good scene. And these are so-called the leaders of the martial art industry, you know? Okay, the leaders of the martial art industry. One wants to be the godfather of martial arts, okay, and he associates with gangsters. And what, you know, I would say what right martial artists would associate gangsters, but I can't, because my own instructor Senzo Tanaka was that way. And that's something that's not being discussed in the martial arts world. Is really, we have this ideal image of what it was when I grew up as a kid and what I thought I was getting involved in. And then you have the real image of martial arts, and that is a lot of the so-called dojos in the Orient, the schools in the Orient were really just recruiting centers for organized crime. So am I surprised at the behavior? No. You know, did I go past that? Yeah. I even was ordained by the Shaolin Temple in the 1980s when nobody was there. I don't know if you know this or not, but Putin's daughter, myself, and James Coburn were the first three to actually be ordained by the Shaolin Temple in China. And my name is Shi Chang Gui. And they called that because I would bring them money and they could hide because they were being hunted. When I first went to the Chinese temple in China, I got in there during the time of Bloodsport. And that's when China was closed. People really don't understand the Chinese. They really don't understand what's going on in this country, and they better be prepared. That's all I'm going to say. Because they were hunting them, and I used to bring money so they could hide. So when I went to the temple, there was just the abbot. There was three young boys and like a groundskeeper. That was it. That's all who was left. The rest had fled. Now you have these troops that are really wushu acrobats putting on shows and saying it's the Shaolin Temple, but they're not the real deal. And let me tell you something, when you meet a real Shaolin monk, the real thing, it's like you met somebody from another planet. And I am not joking. They don't walk like we walk. They've trained in heavy metal all their lives. They're draped, and then they almost like slide their feet. It's sort of almost like a circular slide when they walk. And in fact, I was in Seattle with one, and it's rather interesting. A kid on a skateboard was coming down Capitol Hill right towards him, and you're wondering how he was going to run into him. There's no way to get around him, and the way he slid his foot and put his foot behind the skateboard went by him, and he put it back out, and it looked like he walked through him.
Jesus.
Wow.
It looked like he walked through him. And then we went swimming at the Washington Athletic Club together, and my brother and me, that's what I call him, my brother. And he looked like an otter. I mean, his whole body swam like an otter. I never saw anything like that in my life.
Jeez.
And then when he came to my home, I used to live on Martha Lake, and I had the most waterfront footage on the lake. And he was out there on my patio, and all of a sudden I noticed across the lake, all the lights are out because they're watching him do some movements on my lawn. All my neighbors across the lake. And then all of a sudden I look up, and in the tree, there must have been 1,000 birds. I'm not exaggerating. Every limb. I mean, they just came from everywhere. And I was like, this is something else. And then he did something that I'll tell you in private. I don't want to feel like a nut, but he did something that's, like you said, throwing fire.
I was gonna say, did he shoot fire out of his hands, bro?
Well, honestly, I'll tell you what he did do. He did a set where his energy was so strong. When he set, I actually saw the windows flex.
Wow.
Okay. Like I told you, they're like from another planet. They are like tied into something, but that's a lifetime of dedication, and I can understand that.
Right.
But it was interesting. Here's the interesting part. So my study from the Shaolin monks led me to study Bandajo and Ojai in Mongolia and learn the Mongolian way. And that's even more fascinating. And you know how I know how it came about is I was there with the monks, and they were saying, well, and he was telling me the story of how 80 monks were sent to guard a silk train that was being robbed by one Mongolian Bandajo warrior. You know, and these are the guys who conquered China. You have to understand. There's only 50,000 of them, and they conquered millions. But what they could do is just amazing. When I got there, I actually ran into a master, and they live on the plains. I want to do a movie on this one day. They still live the way they lived, like, you know, in the medieval ages. And they ride horses, they eat horses, and they're in yurts, and they wander. They're still nomads, never see a TV. You can run a horse at them at full gallop. They'll just jump into the saddle backwards. Like the horse will come up running at him full speed backwards, and he just kips, and he ends up in it and goes. And they ride with like 4 horses side to side together and cook on them. It's bizarre, but it's what happens, what Genghis Khan did, and how he conquered Asia.
Man, I tell you what, brother, I'm going to go here in a moment about like your knowledge for history and writing and stuff like that. I want to further explore that, but I just want to go back real quick about keyboard warriors. We're talking about warriors, man. I've actually had people accuse me on my shows with having interviews with Steve Sharippa from Sopranos, Eric Roberts, you know, guys like that. Excellent actors, boxers. And I've had people, keyboard warriors, be like, those aren't real interviews. I'm like, do you not have eyes? Like, are you? But I don't ever respond. I let it go. Sometimes I'll jump in for one of my homies. If like someone I know that has a fellow podcaster or a fighter and someone rips them apart, I'll go after them. I'll stand up for my boys. You know what I mean? But for me, I just let it go. It's like, do you not have ears and eyes? Like they're referring to me by my name. You know, like, how is that a fake? Like, even this one, people might be like, well, this isn't a real podcast. Well, asshole, then you know what? Let me hear yours and get, you know, just go away. Like, I hate haters, man. Like, everyone's out there, especially nowadays. Like, people are bored. They got nothing to do. So they try to, because they don't have any ambition, you know. A lot of people.
But you have to understand, a lot of those people, it's not about telling the truth. It's about attracting. They're clickbait artists. They're out there trying to attract people to come to them so they can make money from it. That's why I end up being trashed a lot, is because nobody really comes when they're hearing good, okay, in this society. It's more about, oh, did you hear the scandalous thing? You got to hear the scandalous thing. Look what so-and-so said. Oh, he's the writer of Bloodsport. Listen to what he says. I mean, one of the things that really upset me on a personal level is I'll give you an example. And nobody thought to question it. All right. They just accepted it. Someone says, I was such a liar that my wives left. Okay. No, I divorced my wives, if you want to be honest. I divorced them, not because I didn't love them and not because we didn't get along, although we did have our troubles. I divorced them because I was sick. I had 2 brain tumors from fighting. I didn't know that in one, my first marriage, we didn't know. We knew that it was a tumor. There's just no way they could deal with it with the medical, you know, technology at that time. And she wanted to be, you know, we had separated, and she wanted to get together with me. And I'll never forget it. She was teary-eyed. Okay. And it broke my heart to tell her. She says, no, I can't get back to you, because I wanted her to have a full life. Do you understand? Have children. I couldn't give her that. I couldn't give her that guarantee, you know? And it was a struggle. And I continue to do many of the things I've done and accomplishments I've done. People don't realize I did it while I was sick. I did it while I was struggling to just even get out of bed sometimes.
You're a fighter.
And then I fight through that and to be, you know, to make some real accomplishments in my life, measurable accomplishments.
100%.
Same thing with my second wife, you know, Davia. Hey, I had a brain tumor. You know, she even knew because they diagnosed it. All right. I got it. The reason we found out about the brain tumor is I was they were trying to do the UFC. They were trying to get me to fight in the first UFC after Bloodsport. Art Davies had called me. His office had called me, wanted me to fight. They were going to call it the Ultimate Fight Challenge because I was known as the Ultimate Fight Champion. I was the original title that Victor Moore gave me. That if you look at Bloodsport, it's the Ultimate Fight Contest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to call it the Ultimate Fighter Contest, predicating this is like 5 years after Bloodsport's release. They were going to try to ride on the coattails of its success. And I had a guy who used to work for me, a guy named Zane Frazier. Zane was an employee. I hired him because I was sick at the time, so he could teach my classes for me because I couldn't get into the school. I'd be too sick sometimes. So what does he do? He hounds me for a solid year. He shows up, says some WWE Mau thing saying I hired a hitman to kill him and his wife. Well, if I hired a hitman to kill your wife, dude, first of all, why am I not in jail? You know, why would you even know that? You know, hitmen don't exactly go running around and say, I'm a hitman. Did you pay him more money? Is that it? You think he, you know, I mean, it was an insane statement. It was so done. I finally got so tired of him. I invited him to fight me in the challenge ring, which was like 40 feet away at the Draken Martial Art Festival where this all took place. He declined. He was embarrassed by everybody because he didn't get what he wanted. He was really trying to bait me like, I'll fight you in the event, right? They were really trying to get me there because my name was a big draw. Would have been a big draw for that first UFC. So they turn around and he comes back 20 minutes later. I informed the security, look, I have this guy. There's a publicity stunt obviously going on here. Either I'm out of here or he's out of here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't want to have to deal with this. And you asked me to be here, sign autographs. So while I'm setting up the booth and signing an autograph for a kid, all of a sudden I hear my name. I turn and I get hit with brass knuckles.
Oh, shit.
Boom. Okay. They don't tell you that side of the story. And this is proven because it's in the lawsuit against me and Frazier. He hits me with brass knuckles. Okay. If he didn't hit me, then it was one of the other guys in his entourage that did. Let me put it to you that way. Okay. Because I ended up at the end of it taking him down. My attorney had told me because he'd basically been harassing me for a year, trying to get me to fight in the stupid UFC thing that they were doing. Not to hit him, not to strike him, not to do anything. The reason for it is I had already a prior lawsuit with Zane Frazier, where he, as an employee, obviously not someone I was in business with, like certain people try to portray, I cheated him in a business deal. I got into it with my secretary and claimed that she closed the door on his eye and he was injured from it. When in reality, the argument was he was siphoning off students and potential customers to go teach somewhere else so he could open his own school. Okay? Yeah. All right. So here he is. He put in a bogus workman comp case. My attorney's telling me, Mike Frankel, you can always verify by contacting him if you want. Do not strike him. Do not do anything. He gave me specific instructions. Just tie him up your jujitsu, Frank. You know what you're doing. And I did. I had him all tied up. Cops could have come and basically, after he hit me, put the cuffs on him, taking him away. The way Zane tells the story, it's like, oh, I was ready to ground and pound him, that kind of thing. No, he wasn't. Then I got kicked in the head. Then he tried to gouge out my eyes. Steve Williams, who was nearby, jumped in, grabbed his hand to stop the gouge. I broke free, and I ended up fighting 4 so-called UFC. I won't mention their names, but they're high-level personalities. It's on the camera, okay, in the lawsuit. That's why this coattail, everybody settled with me like that was it. And we ended up, and I held my own. I didn't beat anybody, but I held my own against 4 top MMA guys.
That's not easy to do, you know.
No, I held my own against 4 top MMA guys, one of which someone said was one of the Gracies. Okay, mm-hmm. I don't know. I won't say that it is or isn't because the footage is CCTV. You know, you'd have to blow it up and really look at it. Okay, but it came out in the court case. The hotel actually didn't settle with me till we got to binding arbitration. I won the arbitration hands down when all that stuff started to come in, and that was the end of it. I ended up with a $500,000 judgment in my favor. Okay.
Well, congratulations there.
Yeah, but you have Clyde Gentry III, who's one of Gracie's little henchmen, right? And they came out and told a whole different story. Black Belt Magazine came out and said, reported the story, our fight took place in New Orleans. I've never been to New Orleans. All right.
Wow.
This is the kind of crap that's going on and floating around. So when you say trolls, be very careful, because what you do is you're minimizing the criminality that's really going on here. And there's a lot of criminality going on. And I just became, appointed as an ambassador, okay, to the World Organization for Peace, which is the private side of like the UN, okay? Far more stringent as far as due diligence goes, okay? And one of my missions is going to be, and they know this, and this is why a lot of these guys are going crazy, like Dana Stamos, who's a web designer, who runs a site and has no black belt, legitimate black belt of her own, but she's appointed herself to be an expert, along with a number of other people who appointed themselves to be experts. And we know they're not experts, but based on their behavior. You don't behave that way, okay, where you're tearing people down, attacking people, and behaving in such a cowardly fashion and say you're a martial artist. That's totally the first lesson you learn as a martial artist, is respect for others, especially if they're doing it wrong. So guys, you go to correct them. You don't embarrass them. You don't do that. You find a way to address it, okay?
Right.
And so they've been doing that in such a public way that, attacking innocent people. And I've watched them. I've watched people commit suicide over their crap. You have to just shake your head and go, it's got to stop. I've been fighting for regulation for a long time. I've been advocating. We need a professional standards for teachers, where you go to a state or a federal test, and you have to know some basic things. First aid, emergency first aid would be one of the requirements. How about sanitation, how to keep a dojo clean so people don't get staph infections, okay? How about a background investigation to make sure that the person teaching the classes isn't a sexual predator, okay?
Great points.
All right? I'm about protecting the public, and these people are fighting me on it. You know why? Because they're pedophiles, or they hang out with pedophiles. They have criminal records, okay? They have no traceable skills, no measurable skills that if you actually called them out and said, okay, you're wearing a black belt, show me, you don't even have to demonstrate it. Tell me the difference between a correct and incorrect black kick, and what makes it right and what makes it wrong.
100%.
Show me you can teach if you're going to be a teacher.
And I'm glad you're going here, because I want to talk about like your practice and your gym that you got going on, and your ideas moving ahead. Like, do you want to open up multiple? I mean, first of all, where are you located in Vegas? Because I'm by the Santa Fe Casino in North Vegas.
Oh man, you're down the street from me.
Dude, we're hanging out. When are we hanging out?
All right, that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to give away where I live.
No, I'm saying, but yeah, like, you let me know
after the phone call.
Yeah. We're hanging out, buddy.
We're neighbors. If you're close to that location.
Yeah. I'm like, I could throw a rock.
Okay.
And hit it from here. So that's great though. So you're familiar. Yeah, you're familiar with the area. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, right now I've got gyms all over the world, in the sense that, and we have a high level. I actually pulled my schools out of the US because just what was going on, as far as the ethic, what I was seeing, the level of ethics, and also because, I was looking at where I could make the most impact on people. And, the martial arts industry here is not starving for information, whereas when I was in Mexico, I'd go to the small towns and there's no one. And there's no one going to be knowing martial arts. So I'm teaching somebody up there. And next thing you know, he's the teacher for the town. And he's now his city's got 6 teachers, and we can go on and on and on. And after 20 years, I've got, black belts throughout the country. And not necessarily in my style. I just went there to really just help people learn the martial arts, but learn it correctly, learn the right way. We've turned around a lot of disadvantaged families, and change their entire lives by just teaching them the work ethics and the how to think, how to do problem solving, just like you do when you're on, you're fighting, how to make that transition from the ring into your life, and how to make those moves so you can be the master of your own destiny. And so I'm very proud of that. In fact, Kira, hand me that award. I'm going to show you something. I don't share this with very many people.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Okay. But this was an award. It's my most proud award, believe it or not, even though I've got my world championships and all that. And what this is, I don't know if you can see that, but it's from the mayor of Mexico City. And it's for my programs where I change the lives of all these children, reduce the crime rate in the city.
I love it.
It's beautiful, man.
Yeah, that is great.
Yeah, because
martial arts is a discipline, and it gets people off the street, and it shows you, like we talked about before, like two guys could, or two ladies could go in there and bang it out in the ring, but then afterwards buy each other dinner, embrace, hug,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how it is. That's what we love about this discipline. It's a discipline.
Well, in Kumite fighting, that's what's so different. You would never see the behavior like you see. First thing is we bow to each other. Well, the reason you're bowing is you're thanking the person for giving you the opportunity to learn and to do this.
Yes, sir.
That's number one. You're paying respect. You don't see that. I remember, a lot of my money went to pay for the guys I fought, because after the matches, I would go to the hospital with them. I'd pay their bill.
Yeah.
And, medical bills are expensive, unless you're in different parts of the world. Unfortunately, most of my fights were in Mexico, so it wasn't a strain, but for them, it was a strain.
That's the way to do it. You didn't lose many fights, huh?
No. I lost some amateur fights. I'm not going to say I never lost a fight in my life. That's not true. And I lose a fight every day with my wife. I tell you, forget it.
Oh, dude, don't get me started.
Never won a fight with my wife.
I love my wife, but ask her about me and the way I wash dishes and the way I do certain things around the house. Like, we get along so well. She's my best friend. And, tomorrow she's going to watch boxing and UFC with me and whatnot. But don't get her started on how I handle business around the house. But I do handle my business around the house in another way, not in the kitchen, but in the bedroom. So I'll throw that out there.
There you go.
That's where it counts the most.
Right. Oh, that's what matters. That's
all that matters.
Yeah.
But
so I think as men, if we're married, I think as men, we're married, we're always perpetually in training,
Yeah, gotta be on guard. You got to be on guard at all points, because you never know what the hell is going to go on, man. Like, you're just going to be and then sometimes you actually set the wheels in motion, or then they might have a bad day and they're going to set the wheels in motion, and something's up. You're like, right away, you sniff it out. You're like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on with you today? Nothing. Nothing. You're like, nah.
Right.
No.
Exactly.
And you're like De Niro and Raging Bull. I heard things. Right. But hey, man, this was great. First of all, we're gonna link up. I'll text you afterwards. In a moment, I want all my listeners to know where we can follow you and see all the great things that you've done. The show will be airing tomorrow on iHeart, Spotify, Google, Amazon, YouTube, everywhere. I'll send everyone links. I'll send you links, Frank. I'll send Adam links. I'll send a lot of people links. And the martial arts universe, Frank, this is a complete honor. I'm glad you were able to come on and tell your story.
Absolutely.
Well deserved, man.
Well, thank you. It's ironic. I'll give you an example. Wikipedia, right? I once went in there just to try to change my date of my birthday. I think I know my birthday, right? And they wouldn't let me do it. And that's the crookedest thing I've ever seen. It's that whole thing. We put up court documents. I hired professional researchers. They had all the data, all the links. They couldn't get the truth up. So, like I said, just remember, the martial arts industry, there's a whole criminal element in it, and it's all based on controlling the narrative. And the narrative is to keep people in fear, and that's what keeps them going to these Hall of Fame events. I would really like to see them put an end to some of them, because they're so outrageous as far as what's going on. And again, a certain level of accountability. I know in certain countries, for example, if you lie about somebody, if you defame a person, it's a criminal offense. It's not a civil offense. It becomes criminal. And I think that needs to be, and that's one of the things I think that needs to be instituted in this country, because people would go back to being more honest and I think more gracious with each other.
We need that in society, man. Now more than ever, everyone went through hell. And I always felt this way in terms of like, everyone just taking care of each other. And if someone does right by you, do even better by them type of thing, like that kind of mentality. I'm a Buddhist again. So, but it's like, now more than ever, it's tough times still. Like, they try to act like it's not, but it still is. Like people are still like, having difficulty. So anything you could do to help someone out is very important. And that's why, if you're a real practitioner of martial arts, any kind of combat sport, yes, we can be barbaric. Yes, we seem like aggressive guys. Yes, we train hard. Yes, we go hard. Yes, if we get in the ring, we're going to try to kick someone's ass. But guess what we're going to do afterwards? Like I said before, I'm going to buy you some dinner, or maybe you buy me dinner if you kick my ass. If I beat your ass, I have a rule. I'm going to buy you dinner. But all right, where can we find you, Frank, on social medias and whatnot?
Well, Frank W. Dukes on Facebook. Or The Real Frank Dukes. That's the best one to go to. The Real Frank Dukes. And because there's so many impersonators, by the way. I got 47 impersonators on Facebook, just so you know. Jeez. So go to The Real, and that's all caps for real. The Real Frank Dukes. You can get in touch from there. Also, my website is frankdukesbloodsport.com. All one word. So lowercase.
Hey,
and that's
Frank.
It. And you'll see a lot, by the way, if you go to that site, I'm especially putting up some things. There was a research group that did a project. They actually started out to disprove me, and they were kind of won over by the evidence of what they saw in Tanaka. And they also do, so they're getting ready to do something. I'm going to try to publish it on the website, which will be the verification of the Kumite and Tanaka. So,
wow.
And then you have to ask yourself, with all this evidence out there, why would people lie and say it doesn't exist?
It's got to be like borderline hurtful too. Like, I mean, the guys that I learned from, whether it be in music or my father or whatever, with guitar, and my drum instructor, Mr. Dino Calicari, and, all my boxing instructors, Lloyd Marshall, my martial arts instructor, Ralph Ramundi. And then also, of course, Adam, I consider my sensei and a mentor to me, and it's like, if someone said that they were non-existent, I'd be like, dude, you have no idea how emotional it is to train and learn off someone. And like, for someone to put that in question, it's like, it's like, this is where I get Italian now in Jersey. Come see me then. Come see me what my fake sensei
here's the thing.
Didn't show me.
It's a degree of murder. When you think about it, when you erase the memory of a person, that's murder.
Yeah.
And anybody and all the people who deny his existence or have denied his existence or what's going on, they're murderers in my mind. Yeah. They may not see it that way, but if they really intellectualized it, what they just did is they erased the memory of a human being.
Thank you. That's Frank. I can't wait to hang out with you and train with you, man. And Adam, like, that's exactly where I was going with this. How can you dismiss someone that's done something so pleasant and so wonderful for someone like yourself and act like they just did not exist? At the time, there was no internet. At the time that you were doing things, like, I mean, even for me, I'm 42. Like, I could claim things like, I've amateur fought. People are like, where's your footage? When I fought amateur, I was in my 20s. There wasn't really much, I have certain things I could show people, shitty like VHS things that I have to put to my computer. But I mean, we didn't have those things. So, the bottom line is like for anyone to put that in question, especially to like, if you look at someone like Adam, yourself and I, and other people that actually do this stuff, like I said, come see me. We'll show you it's real.
One of the ironies is one of the guys who's demanding like photographic footage was actually convicted for destroying my photographic footage.
No shit.
Much of it. Yeah. People don't talk about the fact that how many people were caught busting into my schools in the 80s and burning my scrolls, stealing an entire safe full of stuff. Let's talk about that. And they're caught in the act. And these are my critics. These are my critics. So why are you giving them credibility? Why are you pumping up criminals? That's what I want to ask. If you're a decent human being, you don't do that. You don't pat them on the back and you don't go along with that kind of behavior.
No, you don't do that shit, man. That's what's up.
And like I say, if you really want to know who's real and who's not, look at my sources and I'm going to tell you, look into their backgrounds and see if they have any criminality. And I think you'll see that they do. Look at my background. You'll see I was an adjunct faculty member of the Criminal Justice Institute. Okay. I've got awards of the yin yang for things I've done in law enforcement, things I've done militarily. You come to my home, you'll see what I'm talking about. I don't put it out there. Okay. I really don't. I try to keep it very quiet. That's just who I am. But anybody who's walked in my office, one of the things they do is they can see what they call a court finding. And the court findings, specifically, it's a statement by the court saying, these we know to be absolutely true. Okay. And they're all the things that these people are saying don't exist. That's the ultimate irony of the whole thing.
When we do a sequel show, for sure, we'll unpack that. I want to get into your books and all that. Adam, let the listeners know where we can see your amazing kicks. Like Frank was saying, I've witnessed this, and people actually give Adam shit on social media and say that that's not real or you're speeding up tape. I'm like, no, I've been there and I've seen it.
Here's my challenge. Here's my challenge. Okay. Let him stand in front of Adam and let him execute the kick on him. And then afterwards, tell us whether it was real or not.
Sure.
Right.
I agree with that completely. And I would say, you know what, I'm on Instagram a lot. I'm on Facebook. I do a little bit of TikTok, but I kind of try to stray from there because it's just so distorted and everything. But yeah, man, you can hit me up across all platforms, and feel free to message me or whatever. Sure.
People, you got to see these kicks, man. Like, I mean, I've seen them in person, and they've even gotten more severe, and I can't wait to train with Adam again. And if you guys are familiar with the Bob beat up toy, that's Adam's kicking the shit out of this thing. Poor Bob. Is he deflated yet?
I broke one of them yesterday. I broke the bolts out of the back when I did a 360 spinning kick. And so I had to I'm going to have to buy a new one. That's all there is.
So here's the thing. I got to say this. What inspired you to do the 360?
You really want to know this? So actually, you're actually responsible for me doing these 360 kicks a lot of the time. I know, no, and I'll say this. I know that one of your favorite kicks is a jump back spinning 360, a hook kick, correct?
Yeah.
And so when I was a kid, we used to sit around, we'd read black belt magazines and stuff, and I'd always see Frank Dukes in there, and they used to talk about that kick. And well, I started trying to do that kick, I'd say about 5 years ago, and I couldn't get it down. And just something happened one day where I kind of just felt the mechanics of it. I kind of understood the machine. And it just started working, and I started just really trying to hone in the ability to do it, and it's just working. It's just working incredibly. So,
yeah, for me, when I fought it, when I used it, I always use it as a finishing technique. The reason I ended up doing it is because it was such a crowd pleaser,
Yeah.
And I would do that. Also, I would always use it as a finishing technique because it's kind of a dirty thing. I had the psychology that I always knew my opponents would try to who had bravado. They would want to throw that 360 kick somewhere early on in the game. And what I would do is just grab that leg and I'd throw him right out of the arena.
Right.
I would
and then
I would go with it. And
it's usually a kick like
that was,
it's usually a kick like if I'm going to use it at a tournament level, like I use it when I know that they've kind of almost turned to the side and I have a viewing of kind of the side of their body a little bit, because I want my hook to kind of come into the side as they're sitting on the side. And it's a tournament killer. I mean, I don't think a lot of people are really used to that type of kick, especially with the sequences. And if you throw it just right, it's almost, you can't see it coming.
No, especially if you do a spinning and you go right into that back kick like you were doing the other day. I saw a video of you sent me. All I can tell you is that's a game changer, because what happens is the eyes avert and they follow the first leg, so they don't ever see the second one coming. And if you and the speed you were throwing it at, there's no beat in between, and that's where people make the mistake. They have there's a pause in between. They go and then they stop and they go, and you're just like ta-da. And that's what you have to do. Yeah. I had actually a really beautiful scene. I'll leave this alone. It's kind of sad. It's some of the footage that never made it into Bloodsport, but we had an aerial duel that I had choreographed with Jean-Claude in the movie. And I had this terrific guy who really knew how to do spin kicks. He's a Taekwondo practitioner. And Jean-Claude, he had his ballet background, so he was so graceful up there. He could really do it. Plus, he has a karate background, and we worked together to get past that kind of Shotokan stiffness, so he appeared more fluid in the film. And for film purposes, and they were just like dancing in the air. The way you saw that they would throw hits to each other. It's just sad that was one of those scenes that never made it into the film. I was always hoping that somebody somewhere maybe has that raw footage and grab it one day, because it really is I think it's one of the more spectacular scenes ever photographed that nobody's ever seen, unfortunately, but ever done, because no one's ever done it like that. And I got to hand it to Jean-Claude. I got to tell you, when he did that, the way he was doing that, I couldn't have asked for a better person to have performed those movements and the sequence of movements. And he was terrific. His ballet background was great because he didn't have to stop and only after 3 moves. He was taught to, keep moving and moving and keep moving from one to another. His brain was trained that way. And I would recommend to other people, if you really want to learn kicking, especially if you're fighting, take ballet. I know it's the opposite of what you would think, but take it, because it changes the sequence in your head. You're not stopping. And you're learning to do these sequential movements very quickly, one after another.
Just like with music, and Adam does that. And I noticed that right away. And this goes back a couple of months when I was training with him, but I noticed there's a rhythm to what he does. Bang, bang. It's like real quick, especially when he does his hands. Like I listen to it. I'm a drummer, so I listen to it. There's beats and rhythm. I don't even know, Adam, if you realize it, but Adam listens. He's a big music guy like me. And there's a lot of fluidity in music and rhythm. Like when I do combinations in boxing, for sure. Like, when I do a 5-piece, for musicians out there, for the nerd musicians like myself, we have something called the 16th note and a quarter note. 16th note is 1 E and then the quarter note is a 2. So it's like 1 E and a 2. Like and I use that. I apply that to my method of fighting, to have rhythm, but also. The other thing I try to do is not be so predictable, because if you're training, that's one thing. But if you have an opponent in front of you, they could start to read your rhythm. They could start to see exactly what you're doing. Like, if you're just doing like a same constant. Yeah, exactly. If you're doing like 1, 2, 3s and constant and always, so you got to change your trajectory. You got to change your velocities. You got to throw change ups and fastballs and all that kind of stuff. Frank, this was an amazing conversation. And Adam, like, this is awesome. A lot of people are going to love this, and you shared so much, my man. And I am just so thankful to have you on here. As soon as my links post.
Thank you.
My pleasure, guys. My pleasure.
Hey, man, anytime. And I can't wait to hang out with you, my man, and Adam out here. We'll go out, we'll have some fun, and we'll also train. Sounds great, fellas.